Hello, world. I'm Miles.
And I'm Memphis.
Welcome to Your Story Club
podcast.
A place where stories are told and legends are made.
That was cute, but I'm here for the interviews and not the jokes.
Sorry.
Oh, guys, and by the way, his nickname on the podcast is the Lame Joke Dude.
Hey, I'm watching you here.
And so am I. I'm also watching you. We're going to be interviewing all kinds of creatives, and you guys are going to be asking them awesome questions about what?
Their childhood.
I think that if we can chat with people about their childhood, you creative too will be inspired, and then we can pass it on to other people.
Should we call you Dinosaur Dude or Lame Jokes Guy?
I think we're going to call you Nickname Maker. That's what we're going to call you.
I actually don't like that nickname.
Mr. Nickname Maker.
No!
Okay. Everyone, we want to welcome you to
The Your Story Club,
Where everyone has a story.
Hey, everybody. I know it's been a while, but we've been adjusting to school and trying to figure out how to do this. We're finally done with the episode, and we can't wait for you to hear it.
So here we go. Part 2 of the Adam Copeland story. In 3, 2, 1.
Okay, Memphis, you're up. Give us a question.
What did your mom or teachers do to be creative?
So my mom, she was just, gosh, she was the best. She was the mom who sat with me and listened to albums. Now, I know you probably don't know what albums are, but they're these big vinyl things that you put a needle on and music just sounds better on them. But my mom and I would sit down and she would put on her albums. And that's where I fell in love with the Beatles. And that's where I fell in love with Led Zeppelin. And it's where I fell in love with the Eagles and Creedence, CCR, and just all of this amazing music that kids my age didn't really get to listen to.
AC/DC?
My mom was not into AC/DC, but we're talking, this is kind of pre-AC/DC breaking. This is a while ago. And then I would sit down with my uncles, and they had all of the Queen albums. So I would sit and listen to Queen and Cheap Trick and Boston and all of these great bands. So I fell in love with music from a really, really early age. And to this day, it's still probably my greatest love outside of my family, even more than wrestling is music. It's a constant in my life. I think it opened up my mind to creativity. Music was the great bridge that brought me to what I have eventually ended up doing. It opened my eyes to performance. And I fell in love with Kiss, which is face paint and these larger than life characters, like the comic books, like then wrestling. So it all kind of led to that. But I did drama. I always took drama in school.
You did? I don't think I realized that. I didn't know you were a theater kid in high school. That's awesome.
Well, see, I kind of fell in this weird pocket where I was a jock, but I wasn't a jock. I was a theater kid, but I wasn't a theater kid because I was on all the sports teams. So I kind of fell into this weird pocket, but I was also like a headbanger because I listened to Metallica and Led Zeppelin. So I was this weird island unto myself, really. And I had friends, but I wasn't in any one pocket. I didn't hang with a gang or anything. I had my one best friend, and that was kind of it. And prior to kind of hitting my genetic potential, I was kind of a nerd, and I had kids pick on me, and I remember thinking that's not going to happen again. I remember remember it like it was yesterday. These three guys, one threw me up against the locker, punched me in the face, and tried to knee me downstairs, and I kind of dodged that. But then they walked away, and I kind of stood there thinking, why did that happen? What just happened? And that's never going to happen again. And that summer, I started working out. Wow. So the following year, when I saw those guys, they wouldn't even look at me. And that was revenge enough. That and the fact that they all came to my book signing and stood in line to get my book signed. That was pretty good revenge too.
That is amazing. If I could be a fly on the wall. Do you boys hear that? Kids that gave him a hard time. It like literally hurt him. Yet that was something in his life that propelled him to be who he is now. And look at that. They came to a book signing.
Well, it's odd too. Like as much as I never want that to happen to my girls at school. That moment, it stuck with me and it did drive me. I used that as a kind of a driving force to get out of my hometown and to do those things that I wanted to do. In a weird way, I almost got to thank them.
We have these really tough moments in our lives, and your childhood, I'm sure it's chocked full of them. But it's, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to allow that to be our story? Are we going to allow that to be the only part of our story? Or are we going to...
They're kind of the reason you're jumping off 15-foot cages.
Well, yeah, so I can blame him for the broken leg too, but...
So, Adam, I'm usually the nickname maker here, but you already have a lot, so let's hear from you.
Yes. What are all your nicknames, Adam?
The ultimate opportunist, the master manipulator, the one that really stuck, the rated R superstar. Edge, yes. Now I just go as Cope.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I think to Miles, you'll always be Uncle Adam. We'll always keep it that way.
Or Aries.
Or Aries, that's right.
Well, then there's Aries, there's Shuttle, there's, yeah.
Shut what?
Shuttle. Vikings were named, apparently Shuttle Flatnose, and this is historically accurate, his nose was smashed in battle, so they nicknamed him Flatnose. So on Vikings, I had to wear like a giant nose prosthetic, and it kind of makes me not look like me.
I'm gonna press pause right there, okay, guys? I'm gonna press pause right there to do a dog joke. What do dogs do when they when watching Netflix? They press pause.
Oh my goodness.
The girls just went to camp. I got to remember that one because they'll be home in a week, and I'm going to use that.
I have one more joke.
Okay, one more joke. Leaving it to Memphis to lighten things
What
up.
goes tick-tock and woof-woof? A watchdog.
A watchdog. Yes, you heard it
Also
here first,
very, very
ladies
good.
and gentlemen.
So we learned you did theater as a kid, and we know you did Haven and Flash and Vikings.
So much more.
Well, what the theater was for me and what taking drama, honestly, I thought it would help me with wrestling. Everything I did.
So you knew at that young of an age, you were thinking, okay, wrestling's a goal, wrestling's a goal, wrestling's a goal. What's going to help me with wrestling? Theater.
It wasn't a goal, it was the goal.
That's amazing.
There was no second option. For me, I knew that I was going to be a wrestler.
I love that.
Now, the only thing I couldn't control with that was, am I going to be tall enough? Am I going to be big enough? I didn't know that, right? Because again, I've never met my dad, so I didn't know. My mom's 5'7". You know, I just don't know. But I thought I can do everything else within my power to try and give myself some tools that I think will help me with wrestling, because I knew there's a huge element of talking, and we tell stories in professional wrestling, right? So we tell stories with our body, but we also tell stories with our face. We tell story with the words. We're kind of like stand-up comedians. We're kind of like musicians. We're kind of like actors. We're our own stuntmen. We're athletes. It's a melting pot of a lot of different things. So I thought, well, drama is going to help me come out of my shell, because I was a pretty shy kid. And then I took television and radio in college because, again, I thought it would help me with
That's right.
Yeah.
I read that. I was like, you have your radio broadcasting degree? Like, you're a Pandora's box. This is amazing. Sorry, continue.
More than anything, I really they were all tools that I thought I could take with me. You're supposed to go to college. So I was like, okay, I'll go to college, but I want to go to college for something that can be another one of those tools in the tool belt. And it really did help. It helped me come out of my shell. Being in drama helped me come out of my shell, helped me kind of become comfortable in my own skin while I was putting on the skin of characters, if that makes any sense.
I know, I feel that way. I feel like after I leave a character, there's
kind of inherit some of that character?
Yeah, there's stuff I need to say goodbye to in that character, and there's stuff I've learned from that character. After playing Audrey for so long, I felt like she gave me this assertiveness and this confidence that I didn't really necessarily feel that I had before. But then I also had to temper that sometimes. I was like, okay, we don't need to have that skin on all the time.
Well, and what's interesting about it too is there's a part of you in each character. There has to be. You have to pull from your personal experiences, but then you bring a part of that character and it kind of becomes a part of you too. And you're the lead of a show. There's an extra confidence that comes with that. Like, I'm not going to be afraid walking into a room. I just let a show. And if that stays with you, I think that's a good thing. It's a
Mm-hmm.
confidence building thing. And so when I was
Mm-hmm.
on Haven, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm like Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights. I don't know how to do this, right? Little did I know that I actually kind of did because
No, because I was going to say that. I was like, you knew more. I know that's what you felt, but it was very clear that you knew what you were doing.
I leaned on my wrestling. So with wrestling, we're live. We're without a net. If I'm out there, I got to fill 10 minutes with a live microphone and I don't have a script.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
Mm-hmm.
confidence that comes with that. But even still, I knew I was walking into something that was different enough. And I always kind of liken Haven to it was like my high school. And I would ask, I'd ask, our DP, why are we doing this angle? Why are we getting that? Why? I was always trying to study because I thought these are things that are going to be important to learn going forward to the next set that I go on and the next set and the next set, to the point where when I got to Percy Jackson, my first day on set, I had like a 5 or 6 page monologue. And I'm meeting this crew for the first time. And of course, the coverage is on me first. I was like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, I got this. And I had that
Mm-hmm.
confidence from Haven, from Vikings, and so
Mm-hmm.
on and so on, to where I felt really, really confident walking onto the Percy Jackson set. And the fact that it was Disney and everything, I didn't even think of that stuff.
And so amazing to watch. It's such a great show. It's so silly to say this, but I just felt like such a proud parent watching you up there. I'm like, he's a fully capable man. He's done so much, but I'm watching him step into this incredible role and do it so well. I loved the laughter and the joy that I got to see in this character, this god of war, right? But yet the humor and the just bipolar nature of this guy. It was so enjoyable to watch. I was just so proud of you. I was like, man, what an excellent casting and an excellent job you're doing. Incredible work on that show. So good job.
Well, thank you. And like I said, I truly consider Haven like my boot camp. Like at that point, I had to retire from wrestling, and I quickly realized that I loved acting and that this was going to be my path going forward.
You kind of know him more from his acting work, whereas he has this entire life, and that was actually embarrassing.
Your mom, who's this Viking surfer guy?
When they said you're going to have a wrestler cast on the show, I just thought he was going to be a short, fat, bald dude. Not that that's what I think wrestlers are, but I didn't know. I have so many stories in my life of just I wasn't even thinking, or nor did I know. And that was one of them. And then I was like, wait, why is there a surfer here? I felt like I thought we were getting a wrestler. Just the naivete.
So this week, when my mom said we couldn't watch TV,
I made a game for you two,
and it was really fun. It's basically Clue
but with stuffed animals and murder.
and real life.
Wait, real life murder? No. So tell him what you did.
Not real life.
So I basically put a bunch of clues in different rooms in the house, grabbed some stuffed animals, made them suspects, and they had to read off the clues. Some were useless, some were helpful, and decided who was the real suspect.
real who done it.
You two can also make a great game.
Or you could just copy off of ours.
We don't really care. For more ideas, check out our Instagram.
And maybe some pictures of the stuffies.
I'll let you two do that.
What else do you want to ask him about Percy Jackson?
How much swordplay did you pick up?
So what has been pretty interesting with a lot of the characters I play, at some point there tends to be some physicality. For instance, with Vikings, there was a few battle scenes, but what I will say is I assumed that I was hired kind of just for battle scenes, and then as I started getting script, I was like, oh, they want character work here.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have very many physical scenes, just the physicality of rowing the boats, because if you saw us on the ocean, we were rowing those bad boys. It was the hardest show I did, was
Wow.
Vikings. And just from a physical standpoint, it was a hard show. It was rewarding because you knew as you're doing things what it was going to look like. So you knew it was just going to be epic and massive. So it was a very, very physical role. And eventually by the end, so I had to start using axes and start using some swords. And the final scene for my character is actually a battle scene. And the director wanted to do it in a one shot. And my character leads the camera.
And that's actually really good advice, Miles. You know, here was a character that you really only thought was going to be so small, or something in your life that you thought was going to be small. But because you went in and you did an amazing job and you were kind to people and you were great to work with, they actually turned into a much bigger thing. It turned into a much bigger role.
When's the second season?
So, I can't give away too much, but there is a second season. There is.
That's great.
Did you do creative stuff with your friends?
I love to draw, as we already know, since I was the honorary fire chief. And I love to draw wrestling characters, and I love to draw, comic book characters. And so what I would do,
Memphis has a comic book.
His name is Pizza Man.
Pizza Man. That sounds amazing, and it makes me want pizza now. So
I know.
Thank you for that. I currently have a comic going with my daughter's Lyric and Ruby, and it's called Aloha Dog. Aloha Dog fights danger with a ukulele. So, for instance, the first issue, there was a giant lightning storm at the beach, because Aloha Dog was at the beach, of course. And Aloha Dog is also a Frenchie, and this was pre-getting Frenchies, so there's that. But lightning struck the beach and left a giant divot in the beach, and all of these people at the beach got stuck in the hole. So Aloha Dog took his ukulele strings off, tied them together, and reached it down into the hole to pull the people
Would
out
that
of the hole.
cut your hands?
Well, it was nylon string, so no. See, I was ahead of you on that one. I knew where you're going.
Were you creative with your friends, and are you still creative with them?
Yes, I was creative with my friends because a lot of my friends couldn't draw, but they loved wrestling. So especially my best friend Jay and I, we grew up together. All we talked about was wrestling. We loved wrestling. That's how we connected and how we became best friends. So what we would do during art class, I would draw wrestling characters, and I would draw wrestling matchups. And then we would go outside the library in our school where there was kind of round, cavernous area, and that was our wrestling ring. So we would go there and wrestle in between classes. But I would draw up these wrestling shows during art class with all of these characters. So Jay was Sweet Daddy Freakout. This other guy, Mike Van Ent, was the Canadian Cornflake. I was the blonde bomber, Splint. Then there was the one-man posse. And then there was Decker Hard. So those were all of our characters.
Decker
Hard. Anyway.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. And then Jay is who you did the podcast with, right? For a long time
Yes.
as well. And then who you also wrestle on like live television to tons and tons of people with. So that's incredible.
What's crazy about Jay and I, and when I say the story to people, they're like, that's a movie. But I don't think of it in those terms because we lived it, right? But we met in the 6th grade. He tells the story that he was afraid to come in the school because he had just moved to this school, and the teacher sent me out to talk him into coming in. And that's kind of how we first met. And then he had a Ninja Star, which he bought in Karate Illustrated, and offered to sell to me. Little did I know he offered to sell it to everyone to make friends. After school, and we're throwing this Ninja Star into a tree. Don't try it at home, kids. So we're doing that. And he's like, I think I want to keep it. And I was like, really? Yeah. And then while we're throwing it, though, we started talking about wrestling. And that was it. We both loved wrestling. And we continued that love for wrestling all the way to I'm going to college. He's going to college. I started training for wrestling. Then he started training for wrestling. And then we hit the road after college and just went wherever we could. And we starved and we hitchhiked and we took Greyhounds across countries.
So, did you ever get in any fights with Jay besides on the big screen? And were you ever like, oh crap, this is my best friend, I can't fight him, but I have to? And did your friendship ever become a little rocky?
What we had that I think saved us is that we were friends before we became famous. So we became friends before money, before being on TV, before families, before all of the stuff. There was me and Jay. And we always had each other to lean on. So when things got crazy, like when we're driving across what are supposed to be frozen lakes in northern Manitoba, but the van goes through the lake and
What?
you're together. You go through stuff like that just to wrestle in front of 20 kids on a reservation in northern Manitoba where we made $75. You go through that kind of stuff together and you kind of have a friendship for life because it's pre-TV shows and all of that stuff.
We talk a lot about what makes a good friend, and it's so neat to hear that Jay, this incredible friend who was also on Haven, that his support and his friendship is a big part of your story. Okay, hey, speaking of good friends, we need to give a couple of our good friends a shout out. One of our good friends has given us a review on the show, and we also want to thank anybody who's subscribed or reviewed the show and dub you all official friends of the podcast. So Miles, what one of our friends do you want to give a shout out to?
Colin Perry, one of my best buds. We've been friends for a while, and he is a hockey goalie.
And I would like to give a shout out to one of my friends. It's actually Colin Perry's brother, and he is a hockey player. And he's just a great friend.
Yes, and also we have a bunch of other friends who have been huge supporters and always taken the time to say that they like listening to the podcast. So thank you. Thank you all.
If you want to keep this story train going, then you can do it a few ways.
One, subscribe to the podcast and give us a review so that other people can find us.
And our newest way is by becoming a monthly supporter of the show by a paid subscription. If we get enough of these, then we'll be able to release all this kind of special content for those of you who sign up for that. You can find that by going to our Buzzsprout site. That we will link in our show notes. And go ahead and click subscribe and you can support us monthly.
The other way is going to our Instagram page, Your Story Club Podcast.
Share and subscribe with your friends. We always love to hear from you guys. So email us at hello@yourstoryclubpodcast.com and I'll email you right back. Straight from me, no robot. Okay, I think Memphis has some more jokes as we wrap up this awesome interview with Adam Copeland.
Did you have any other jokes you wanted to tell Adam?
Oh, yeah. I have a bunch.
Okay.
Why aren't dogs good dancers? They have 2 left feet.
Do they have 2 left feet? They don't have.
I don't know.
Well, they have 4 legs, so they kind of do.
I
Yeah.
guess so.
What do you get when you cross a dog with a telephone? A golden receiver.
Okay, well, that's a good one. That one I can remember, too.
What did the Dalmatian say after lunch? That hit the spot.
Hey,
I'm definitely
Memphis.
using that one on Ruby.
When did you first start liking dogs?
You know, it's interesting. Growing up, I grew up in an apartment, so we couldn't have pets. And I was always kind of afraid of dogs, honestly, just because I'd never been around them. It was actually a wrestling tour, and we were in this place called Moose Factory, Ontario. There was this little husky, and it didn't have a home, and its mother had passed away. So I took it, and I brought it home, and I fell in love with her. Her name was Frisco, and she was my first dog. And that's when I really, rescuing that dog and understanding the relationship that you can have with your pets, because it was my first pet, I just fell in love. I really did. How they can make you feel, and how pets, but dogs in particular, seem to have a special ability to know when you need a cuddle.
Maverick does that.
Yeah, they can just feel when you're down and when you need them. I remember getting a phone call telling me I had to retire from wrestling. And I was sitting on my deck here in Asheville, and I got off the phone and I put my head down. I cried a little bit because it's the only thing I ever wanted to do. When I first found this out, the dogs surrounded me, and they all just started nuzzling me and cuddling me. And I needed it so much at that point. Even though I was a grown man, even though I still needed it, and they knew it and they sensed it. And that's why, to me, pets, animals are just so special, and they deserve every bit of love and attention and affection that we can give them. So, like, I'm constantly snuggling with my dogs and just loving on them and kissing them. And my daughters are the same way, because they see Beth and I, treat our dogs that way. We treat them like their family, because They are. So Frisco was the one that opened up my heart to loving pets.
Wow, sweet story.
And yes, Memphis. Do you know that Adam in Nova Scotia used to watch our first puppy dog? What was our first puppy dog's name, Memphy?
McAllister.
McAllister. Yes.
Yep.
You would love our current doggy, actually, too, as well. We got one called Maverick, and he's what kind?
He's a Wabadoodle.
He's a Labradoodle, yes. And that's exactly how he talks to Maverick all the time. He loves
Yeah.
Maverick,
Oh.
and Maverick's great for that because you just hug him and cuddle him and everything.
Everybody has their dog voice. You should hear the dog voice for Miss Pickles. So, like, Beth has cornered the market on this. But as soon as she starts doing Miss Pickles' voice, Pickles turns and looks like, oh, that's my voice. She's talking about me right now. I actually brought Branny, my teacup poodle, out to Haven one season too.
You did, and we remember Branny.
Yep,
So
we drove out my
sweet.
pickup truck.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Miles, do you have any more questions about Percy Jackson? Anything you want to say about Percy? I don't want to close this interview and have you being like, I wish about Percy. Anything?
What were you feeling when you were fighting Percy on that beach?
Well, I'll take you back, okay, if that's all right, even though I know we're getting close to the end here. But I know, Miles, you want to hear some of this stuff. So I read for Percy, and I didn't really understand what exactly Percy Jackson was, because when the books came out, when those initial 2 movies came out, I was on the road like 250 days a year. So it kind of flew by, and I didn't really understand what it was.
Those are good movies.
I never saw the movies. I'd never read the books. I'd seen the books, obviously, in bookstores and everything, but I didn't fully grasp how big it was. So I read for it. I didn't think much of it because with auditions, you just kind of got to throw them away. Once you do them, they're gone. But this was the first time that I ever dressed how I thought the character would dress. It's the very first time I did it. So I wore one of like my edge vests, and I had just shaved a kind of mini mohawk myself. And I wore like an Andre the Giant tank top. I was sleeveless. I was all I just figured, why not? And when I read the sides, I saw humor in it. And I came to find out that that's kind of what got me the gig, is that I found the humorous beats in it. And I guess a lot of other people didn't. So I had forgotten about it. And then my manager called and said, hey, you got a Zoom call with the executive producers of Percy Jackson. I still didn't think anything of it. I just thought, okay, maybe I'm on a list now. And sure enough, we're talking. They said, so when you get out to Vancouver, and I went, wait, what? Oh, I got the gig. Oh, wow. Awesome. Cool. But in the meantime, I'd started wrestling again. So now I'm going, okay, how do I pull off this? Because
Get a wrestling gig in Vancouver.
well, but what I do with wrestling is dangerous. So is that going to be allowed by this production? And for whatever reason, I think I know the reason. Rick Riordan saw my take and he said, he's Aries, there's nobody else. So I think that's why I was still allowed to wrestle and still do Percy Jackson, which is kind of crazy. Which I got a funny story there.
Yes.
We did the diner scene, right?
Yes.
And as we're doing the diner scene, the kids didn't know what I was going to do. So when I pounded the table, Arian, who plays Grover, he was petrified. He had no idea it was coming. Nobody on the set had any idea it was coming. Everyone jumped. We did a take where the burgers jumped, coffee spilled, and our director, Jet Wilkinson, she's awesome. She came up to me and she goes, really try and scare him this time. So I do it in different portions of the scene. Then fast forward to closing out that scene, and we finished at 1 a.m. in Abbotsford, BC, outside of Vancouver.
Abbotsford.
And then I had to hop directly on a jet at 2 a.m., fly overnight across the country, land in Philadelphia, go straight to the arena to do a pay-per-view. I hadn't slept since 6 a.m. the previous morning. And it was a half an hour match. And I remember just my eyes were burning. I was so tired. And Beth was with me, and she was involved in the finish of the wrestling match and everything. We get back to the hotel after. I am so wired, I can't sleep again. So now I haven't slept for 48 hours. Got home and collapsed for like a day. Fast forward again to the beach battle. And
I wish people
so-
could see you right now. I know we're just doing this for podcast, but I love all of your close-up faces to the camera.
I'll lean in.
Yes, that's amazing.
So we got to the battle scene, and we had rehearsed it, and we had walked through it, and all of these things. But I'm doing this sword fight with a 13-year-old. So that's a little, it's stressful, awkward and stressful, because I'm like, God, I got to be careful here, because I'm a big dude, and this is a 13-year-old, and he's the star of the show. But we had a blast, and he was so game. Walker, who plays Percy, he was so excited for this scene. It was what he looked forward to most in the scripts, was our battle scene, because he's 13 years old, right in the time of discovering Sylvester Stallone movies. He's doing push-ups between takes, like he's all fired up, and he really is excited about this fight scene with a pro wrestler. He was all down, and there were times I'm chucking him everywhere, and he just looked like a bobblehead. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, he's 13 years old. I have to be so careful here. He was so excited. He was so game, an absolute pro. And I can't say enough about them, Leah, Aryan, and Walker, because in between takes, they go out to school in a trailer. And then they come back in and do more scenes. And then they go back to school. I don't have enough bandwidth for that. I don't remember what I had for breakfast, let alone going to school and then coming in and doing a 5-page scene. Just really, really hard workers, really good head and their shoulders, great families behind them.
I love that.
So do you have any advice for parents in helping their kids be creative?
So what I would say, sometimes as parents, I know I do anyway, I'm overprotective. I want the best for my girls, but I also want them to be safe, and I want to help them. And sometimes I realize I need to just get out of their way, and they need to discover, and they need to create on their own. And then they'll come to me and say, Dad, let's do a comic book. And there's Aloha Dog. Lyric and Ruby have joined the Shakespeare Club at school. So every year they do Shakespeare, and I'm blown away because I'll run lines with them. It's funny because Beth will go to run lines and no, we have to do this with Dad. And I'm like, who do you think I do my auditions with? Mom knows what she's doing. But but it's so much fun, and we sit there and we run lines together, and they ask me the process of how I remember lines, and it's just so much fun to be able to help. But then I realize I don't want it to go beyond help to where I'm butting in, and I need to let them discover on their own. Beth and I also run the drama club at the girls' school. So
fun!
Yeah, and this year, it was so much fun. We did Shel Silverstein poems, and we had the kids build all of the props and paint all of the props. So that's one of the things we do every year is we do this drama club. And this year we had 50 kids come out. Also so much fun to see kids grow and grow confidence and find their voice. And that's what I'm learning with Lyric in particular, because she started acting classes and she loves it. And it's a connection that we have because she loves Percy Jackson. Even if I wasn't on it, she was going to love it. She just loves the show. But now she has a dad who's on the show that she loves, and she sees that kids can do this. That's really exciting to watch her kind of discover and find her voice. So my advice to parents was be there, but don't be in the way.
Yeah. And that's tricky sometimes. You want to be, being present and available, entering into their world, entering into what the kids want to do. And then also walking away when it's time to be done. Like when you just need to step away and let them live their own kid life.
Oh, and let them fall. And if they need a pickup, you can be there to pick them up. But chances are probably get up and go, right, I got this.
Yeah.
If you were an animal, what animal would you be?
Wolf.
Ooh.
Or currently a sloth, because I just sit on my butt all day.
I don't think that. I know even if you are, your brain's probably going a million miles a minute with all of the creative stuff that you're doing. Thank you so much. We like to close out our segment with kind of a time of reflecting your story back to you. So I will do my best because I take a few notes, but usually I kind of do this on the fly. So how do these stories always start off, boys?
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Adam. And he grew up in Canada where it was really, really cold, but really, really beautiful. He was a little guy and he had an amazing, amazing, amazing mom who cared so much for him and did everything she could. She was such a hard-working mom. One day, he won a art contest. And he won this art contest where he drew these like firemen, and he got to go and put on a fireman hat and be in a parade. He was so terrified. But that was some great feedback for him that he had kind of won this art contest. And then later on, he's at school and he's growing up and these guys pick on him and punch him, and it totally surprised him and totally disoriented him. But in his heart and his spirit, he knew that was never going to happen again. And while at school, he met this great friend named Jay, who actually really needed a friend himself. And he was, trying to peddle these ninja stars and doing whatever he could just to have a good friend. And out walks this guy named Adam. Through Adam's kindness, because he just was born with this genuinely kind heart, he started up a conversation with Jay. And they were outside and they would throw these ninja stars around, and they didn't know that their friendship would spark over wrestling. And through their friendship, they began to share this love of wrestling through art, through staging scenes, through going out in this, schoolyard area. And those moments were foreshadowing of what was to come. And this next contest that Adam won, because Adam was a winner of contests, this next contest that Adam won was one that was in the newspaper. And he wrote, and this was a time where they didn't have technology to write for them or anything. He wrote, and here Adam was using his creativity. He was an artist, and now he was a writer, and he wrote his story on why he would love to be a wrestler. And he had this one goal in mind, to be a wrestler. That was it. There was nothing else to it. And it was in the cards that his story in his heart would be seen, and he would be given and win this contest when he heard this voice come over the phone and tell him that he had won. And so that was huge for Adam, because Adam was a hard worker. He was such a hard worker. His mom was such a hard worker, and he had this dream in his heart, and he didn't know how he was going to make this possible. But winning this contest is what made this possible for him. And so he went on his way. Adam grew up, he grew tall, he grew strong, he grew brave, and he began to tell these stories, not on a tiny little stage in the back of a schoolyard, but on a world stage, through driving through all kinds of bad weather, through almost falling into icy lakes, all different kinds of conditions in life, and not knowing where paychecks or food or things were going to come from. He built this friendship, this ragtag group with these other guys with like-minded spirits and hearts. And little did you know, before he knew it, he became this incredible wrestler. And through his time on stage, he was able to take care of doggies and inspire young children and study more arts and more craft and be a good steward of all the relationships, the friendships, and the talents that he was given.
He also kind of jumped off of a 15-foot cape, and he's still here.
And broke his leg. And has lived happily ever after.
Okay.
I feel like even though there was a little part before you climbed off of a big cage and fell, you met an amazing, amazing woman named Beth, and she was incredible, and you got married, and you've had these kids, and you have this beautiful family to tell more and more stories and continue these stories on. Well, Adam, thank you so very much for being patient. Not only you've been so patient with all of our technical stuff that we're still trying to figure out, but we'd love to hear your story. Miles, what do you want to say?
Yeah, thanks.
Well, you're welcome. I am always good to be a guinea pig.
Well, thank you so much, Adam. We so appreciate it. And I'm just going to go ahead and stop my recording right now.
I just hear in my headphones, recording stopped.
Okay, so that was such a great episode. I know it was a bit long, but there was just so much to fit in. He has such a great story.
So you know the drill. If you like it, leave a review, especially so that other kids, parents, and creatives can find us. If you would like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it, and share it on our Instagram at Your Story Club Podcast.
Special thanks and shout-outs to everyone who helped this podcast happen.
Emma Schuster, who helped create our logo and did a bunch of the admin, Matthew Holden, who interned at North Rose this spring, and my brother, Andy Mayer, who brought the logo to life and continues to be my emergency lifeline on all of our technical and audio needs.
It takes a village, people. It really does.
To catch the latest from me, you can follow me at Emily Rose LA, to visit our production company at North Rose Pictures, and for Adam, visit at Rated R Cope. For the doggy rescue, visit Road Dogs with 1D, and to see our creations this week, head on over to Instagram at Your Story Club Podcast.
Most importantly, we hope you kids were inspired today to know your story is being written as we speak. These people that we interview started somewhere, and you have already started and worked through so many challenges along the way.
So until next time, remember,
everyone has a story.
This has been a North Rose Pictures podcast.